Welcome back to Up North at 4. I'm with Dr. James Tinjum. He is the director of the Geological Engineering Program at UW-Madison. Dr. Tinjum, welcome to the program.
Very pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, we have a very serious topic today. I didn't mention that you're also an environmental consultant for the City of Rhinelander, who's facing a pretty major PFAS problem right now. So let's start at the very basics. Can you just tell me, what are these PFAS chemicals that people are talking about?
Yes, PFAS chemicals are what are termed forever chemicals because they are chemicals that are used to protect carpeting, furniture, stain-resistant clothing. They've been manufactured to resist degradation, and they are thus a legacy compound throughout our society because we've been using them in these products for 40, 50 years. And of late, certain environmental groups and agencies have begun to determine that these compounds may be hazardous to human health.
Okay, so there's actually no definitive proof that they are carcinogenic. However, there's some research that would lead people to believe that is the case. So I guess my question for you, Dr. Tinjum, is should people drink the tap water in Rhinelander? Should they not drink the tap water in Rhinelander?
Yeah, so a little bit of background. Wells 7 and 8 in the City of Rhinelander have been mostly proactively removed from service because they have experienced slightly elevated hits of PFAS that are above the advisory limits in the state of Wisconsin and for the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So my recommendation, if it was myself, my family, I personally would install a reverse osmosis or activated carbon filtering system in my domestic house to be out of an abundance of caution as we continue to investigate this issue in Rhinelander.
I see. So reverse osmosis or an activated carbon filter. What about a Brita filter? Does Brita filters, do they have activated carbon in them?
They generally do. So activated carbon is generally what it does. It will mostly reduce PFAS compounds. Reverse osmosis has been shown to more effectively remove, but reverse osmosis systems are more costly and they're more maintenance intensive in a home setting.
So there's been talk about, maybe this isn't just a Rhinelander problem. Maybe it's perhaps of all of the United County or all of the Northwoods. We have viewers in Minocqua, Eagle River, Merrill. Should those people be concerned about PFAS as well? Should they be considering getting a reverse osmosis filter or an activated carbon filter?
Yeah, I have no evidence outside of what we've seen in the City of Rhinelander proper. So I really can't extend this out to the larger Northwoods community. No, I would say that across the nation, where we see PFAS contamination is near airports, where historically wastewater treatment plants have disposed of biosolids, and adjacent to significant industry that has used PFAS compounds in the past. So generally that puts PFAS compounds in a little bit more urban or city settings that will have that type of industry and infrastructure.
I see. Well, you mentioned wells 7 and 8 earlier. This question I have next, it's, I've heard about the aquifer. The aquifer is kind of the large body of water underneath the surface where all water really comes from. So I guess a couple questions here. Could PFAS be in that aquifer? Could it be in the other wells? And if it is in those other wells, could Rhinelander have enough water if we had to shut down well 6 or 5 or any of the other ones?
Yes, so first, it is in our aquifer. So because it was found at elevated concentrations in wells 7 and 8, that means it is in the aquifer. In the Rhinelander area, it's a very shallow aquifer, only about 100 feet deep before we get to massive granitic bedrock. So although your aquifer is very sandy and gravelly, it's also shallow. Thus, it is susceptible to surface contamination and infiltration into the wells. So it's in the aquifer. We know it's there because we measured it from withdrawals from wells 7 and 8. At this time, we have not seen the same concentrations in the other wells. However, from my understanding, if another well is shut down out of emergency or for whatever reason, the supply to the city of Rhinelander in general would be below demand. So the city is at the tipping point that if one more well goes down, it may not be enough water to supply demand.
And what would be the ramifications of that? How would we deal with that lack of water?
Have to cut back. Industry might not have the water. It's a pretty serious thing. We use water in industry, commercial purposes, drinking water. Not having availability to that water due to potential PFAS contamination is a serious consideration that needs to be addressed going forward.
All right, so let's take kind of one large step back and look at this whole process of dealing with this problem, because at the end of the day, that's what we need to do.
Correct.
What kind of steps is the city taking on trying to get rid of the PFAS contamination?
We're doing a few things. First, we're going to be going into the old closed landfill and measuring if PFAS is in the leachate within that landfill. That's part of our program to kind of try to find out where the source of this contaminants is so that we can rule out that old legacy landfill. We are also looking at different things that we might cooperate with at the City of Rhinelander or Oneida County Airport. Another potential location of PFAS contamination, because that's where wells 7 and 8 are located on that property. Ultimately, what we might elect to do is put a new well in service somewhere outside of this region. That is an expensive proposition, drilling a new well and then installing the utility connections to that well. That's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for a new well. Another thing that we're looking at is some really novel treatment at the well area where we actually would inject carbon into the subsurface and see if we can absorb and limit the uptake of PFAS using these evolving techniques that engineers across the country are starting to recommend for locations such as Rhinelander that has this type of issue.
All right, so you mentioned two solutions there, injecting active carbon as well as drilling a well outside of the city. But what I'm thinking right now is both of those solutions will take a lot of money. Is there any way that, I know there's a correlation between some of the factories that we've had here and creating those PFAS chemicals. Is there any indication that maybe some businesses or industries would be held to account for producing those chemicals, or is that not a direction the city is willing to go?
The task force that I am on, the Water Action Team Rhinelander, has a mission from Mayor Frederickson to be proactive with solutions. So just as part of the charge of the task force that I'm on, we are not trying to point fingers or bring in industry or responsible parties at this time. Our mission is to seek out and solicit funding, from the state, federal government, wherever, to help Rhinelander with this problem. I've been in environmental consulting business for 30 years now, and if you do get into litigation, people entrench their heels. It gets extremely expensive. Solutions are hard fought. So in my technical opinion, we should try not to go down that path if we can go down a positive path on finding the problem and fixing it.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Tinjum, for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, again, just a pleasure to have you on, and happy to come back on should your viewers need more information.
Okay, I think we will definitely need some more expertise down the road, especially if we go one of two directions with those possible solutions. So thanks so much, Dr. Tinjum, for joining us.
You're welcome. Take care.